Looking over towards the Kennen as this big engage to on top of things. So I think BLG here are pretty well enabled against what JDG are trying to do.
So a Maokai just came through at the last possible second here.
That's a BLG pick.
Zoom is taking that to the top side. I thought for a second Kanavi would take it into the jungle just to shove it in Meteor's face, because that was Meteor's pick back in spring. But no, it's going to be Zoom taking it to the top lane. This is a really smart pick to deny any strength out of Kingen in the laning phase.
It does. Well, look, I mean, you can still get a little bit of your health bar whittled away, but obviously as the Maokai, you can start to sustain up. But it does definitely give the matchup power to Kingen here, where he'll have control of priority and trying to push out the wave, being able to group with any sort of skirmishes that happen on the top side a lot quicker than his counterpart. But I think it works pretty well against the BLG style of composition, because what we just said was, hey, you know what? BLG want to be in close to you. They want to have your Kalista in your face. They want to simp the set. Same with this Kennen who wants to be in on top of you. Well, if you see this Kennen coming, toss down that Maokai ultimate. You're able to wrap up this Kalista as she tries to hop, skip, and jump her way through the fight. So overall, although it looks a little bit strange and very different for what we usually associate with Zoom, it still makes sense here in trying to deny what BLG are going for.
Yeah, definitely a different style coming out from Zoom in the top lane, but I like this about JDG, right? We always talk about them as one of the smartest teams in the league. The draft showing this is they changed tact at the last possible second and set Zoom up with this giant front line to protect LoKen, to protect Yagao during these fights, and to set up for this big front-to-back 5v5 that BLG are going to be looking for themselves. I'll have to see if it's going to work out as we head towards Summoner's Rift here. And I'm really curious what BLG have up their sleeves here. They're not on a win streak. They've been struggling all split long, and they are now at the last chance saloon here. They got to get some wins on the board, and JDG are certainly not an easy opponent to have to go against here.
Especially when it's JDG on a lot of comfort for themselves. So we're looking at Yagao, of course, is LeBlanc. It was undefeated in Spring Split, and now he gets to get his hands on it in Summer. And this has been such a potent pick for JDG. You also pair it with Kanavi, who we talk about as this guy who likes to now play this super aggressive early game junglers, get into the lanes, gank a lot. Well, that's exactly what this Volibear pick offers. You have insane clear of your jungle, you're super, super quick. You can get out onto the map much faster than your opponent, but even if you want to, go for a full clear, back, get another sweep through your camps, hit that level 4 a lot quicker, and then you can look for ganks. So there's many options here for Kanavi about how he wants to play this jungle matchup, which is always a good thing for Kanavi.
Zoom is not nervous about this matchup in the top lane so far. He's got the Aftershock, so he knows that he can be pretty aggressive and get away with it. He's just going to go for a little trade. I do want to quickly mention the runes, especially down in this bottom lane. Wings actually opting into the lethal tempo instead of that Hail of Blades on Kalista. So less up from burst damage, but in those team fights, he's going to be flying around them.
It also means that, like, in the laning phase, where you want to try and proc a bunch of these Hail of Blades, you don't really have much of an opportunity to against something like an Ashe, because you've got the slows. It makes it a lot more difficult to try and follow up as aggressively. Plus, you're into Leona, who traditionally is seen as this counter pick against the Kalista, because whenever Kalista tries to go aggressive, you're in range of that Zenith Blade, so you always have to be careful here, as already we can see some decent trading in that bottom lane.
Yeah, and I mean, you're going to see them trade back and forth a little bit, especially with Kalista in the fact she's so good at trading in the early levels. But Ashe is too. Ashe is one of these champions that, because of the passive, is able to trade very effectively at low levels. So you can kind of expect with Leona Nautilus that they will go back and forth in these trades. This will happen time and time again, but now they're going to all in for this one. XinMo is the target. First blood goes the way of LoKen. He wants a flash. No, it doesn't follow up.
And there's the difference right there that we talked about. As Wings, it is very difficult for you, especially in these early levels, to try and trade aggressively against an Ashe and a Leona. Leona's got some great engage, so you've always got to respect it, as you saw from Wings. But because of the volley, because of the slows and the auto attacks, it's much more difficult for you to jump onto that Ashe. So Wings unable to get into the fight as much as he would have liked, and you get that turnaround damage.
And don't I look like an idiot now, Doctor? Because I was just saying how we're going to see them trading back and forth, but neither will really commit. Leona versus Nautilus, blah, blah, blah. Immediately, LvMao commits to the fight. But hey, it worked out for him, so I can't blame him. I don't think he was wrong.
And the thing is, this doesn't get any better now for BLG, because when LvMao gets access to that level 3, he gets access to the W, which gives him all these extra resistances, and that's where Leona takes over against the Nautilus. Because when you think of Nautilus as this beefcake, yeah, kinda in the support role, but because he's only got that shield as that steroid to kind of be that beefy guy, well, when you look over at the Leona, she can out-sustain that, she's just got more resistances there, and that, well, lack of a shield is actually buffered by how much resistance she gets.
And it was so crucial as well that the minions actually finished off the final minion that JDG needed to hit level 2 as the all-in came through from XinMo, but he's Nautilus, right? Once you've thrown that anchor, it's already too late. You've already gone in. We've got a potential play on the top side as Kanavi going to be recalling in the brush. Looks like he will commit to the recall in the end. Decided there's not really a way in to Kingen here.
Yeah, both junglers are going to back away now, so you can see that they're going to get that first purchase in, both picking up their jungle items apiece, and will be going back in towards their side of the jungle. Now, if I'm looking over at Kanavi, I'm eyeing up this bottom lane, because you've just seen some of their spells burnt onto XinMo's, and especially look at LoKen and LvMao. They've just frozen this wave in front of their tower. So right now, Wings and XinMo can't do anything. They know Kanavi's going to be on the bottom side of this map, and they've got to respect that.
So this is beautiful from the side of JDG. They're going to be able to keep this wave wherever they want it. And apparently they want it under the enemy tower, because they're not going to freeze after all. They were just baiting us here, Dagda. They're going to shove this one because they know that Wings and XinMo did head back to base. So this is their opportunity to get a hard push off.
What I'm imagining here is that, as you said, they're going to shove it under the tower as Wings and XinMo back, but there's also the opportunity here to turn this in towards a dragon, and especially as Kanavi is already hovering down towards this bottom side, it looks like that's the call here instead of trying to punish Wings and XinMo even more.
They do have to be a little bit cautious, though, because FoFo, by the looks of things, has control in the mid lane. Kanavi going to be clearing some vision. But that Scuttle Crab, importantly, in control of BLG, so they will know exactly what's going on that bottom side of the map. And you can see Meteor is nearby as well, so it would be a little risky to just start this one off from JDG.
I'm surprised to see the back come through from Kanavi, though. He picked up just the refillable pot and also a ward for himself. And as we talked about with Volibear, you can clear very, very quickly in your jungle, but you kind of wasted a bit of time here now as Kanavi, where you walk into river, you don't actually get anything, you back away, you've now wasted 8 seconds recalling, plus the 30 seconds it takes you to get back out to the map. Whereas when you look at Meteor, he's been farming that whole time, so he's opened a CS lead for himself, he's got that level advantage too, so overall, Meteor's just getting more time to work his magic as he clears out his jungle.
And I think that's incredibly important for BLG as well, because we were talking about it before the game started, that for JDG, it's very much about Kanavi setting his lanes up, and that is no different for BLG either. Meteor has very much been the linchpin of this team, and especially moving towards the mid lane to set FoFo up has been the story of success in the wins that BLG have grabbed for themselves across summer.
It looks like we'll have Kanavi trying to set things up once more, but might have actually had a bit of a weird read on where Meteor was, because has gone in towards that jungle, now realizes, hang on a second, there's absolutely nothing here for me to get, so will be backing away towards his own side. But it's been a lot of time that he hasn't actually been doing anything active on the map, so Meteor definitely getting an advantage in this early jungle, and now looking to make plays bot side, but XinMo hook just goes wide.
Unlucky on the bot side here for BLG, as summoners are all going to be just about off cooldown once again. You can see XinMo and LvMao, their flashes will be coming back once again. And it's not that surprising to see Meteor hanging around this bottom side as well, because as we mentioned before, LoKen has really stepped up as one of the primary carries for JDG, and when he is on this Ashe, which he has played 9 other times this split, his crystalline arrows have been magnificent.
And they've been so crucial for setting up plays for JDG. But when you look at the engage on JDG's side, it's pretty daunting to try and play against this BLG. Like, pretty much every member here, every member does have some massive form of CC that can be an absolute nuisance for you. And when you're looking at Wings, who's close quarters, trying to deal with a lot of that CC, same with FoFo, can be relatively immobile. You've got to be very careful with BLG about how you approach these fights, because if you can have JDG coming in on the flanks, it can be very hard for any of these members of BLG to operate.
It can definitely be difficult to get into these fights, but I think one of the things BLG will be looking for is not necessarily a straight front to back fight, but looking for flanks with Kingen, right? Looking for flanks with Meteor and creative ways to start these plays, because with things like the Sett and the Kennen, those ultimates and also the Facebreaker can set these fights up so beautifully if you do find that creative way in and find a way to outmaneuver your opponent. But JDG, certainly not the easiest team to outmaneuver.
It is interesting to see, though, that JDG are not contesting for a lot of these early objectives. Because when we think about it, it's like, okay, well, Yagao has got the LeBlanc, you can do a lot of burst damage earlier on. Same when you look over towards LoKen, but when they're up against the likes of a Syndra, a Kalista, this Kennen who has access to the ultimate as well, they're a little bit wary about fully committing to these objectives. And as this Rift Tower starts to spawn and Wings has already set it up, may try to contest, but they have to be careful, at least when they do come in here.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's here already. FoFo gets the electrocute procced, but I think maybe this is JDG saying, not 100% sure. Here we go. Apparently they are. LvMao's gone in, takes a good chunk of damage, but they're going to trade it for XinMo. Base goal to keep him safe. There's an arrow onto Meteor. See you later as the Slicing Maelstrom gets a couple of stuns, but not enough damage to finish anyone off. XinMo out of the fight as Kingen goes down. It's a double kill now for Yagao as LvMao just about gets away. And Zoom, he's playing bouncer on the front line, keeping everybody away as the Rift Herald will be secured.
And JDG managed to win out on that fight. I was about to point out as we kicked things off that Kingen was very much inside of where JDG were. Zoom had a good flank on towards the back line and made it very difficult for BLG to try and operate. So JDG, as you just called it, Munch, difficult to maneuver them, and JDG catch BLG out.
And you know, you could see them umming and ahhing, but then LvMao just goes, all right guys, it's time to go.
Well, the reason was, look at where Zoom is right now. He's already popped that ultimate, so you've got this massive CC chain that's coming in. It sets the rest of BLG back, and then you're able to turn on towards Meteor and then pick him off. Can't even get the Haymaker off to provide at least a little bit of that tankiness that we get from Meteor. And Yagao now, off to 2 quick kills, he's going to shove in this wave back. That's more than likely it's going to be a Luden's Echo, plus a bunch of stacks for that Dark Seal.
And when we look towards, I mean, you mentioned Zoom coming in from the top side, setting things up with the Nature's Grasp there. It's important to consider the parallel here between Zoom's easily best champion in that Ornn and what Maokai offers to a team fight, especially if you're fighting in the jungle. There is no way to get away from that Maokai ult. It's like an Ornn ult, except it guarantees a hit.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, is that it also forces teams to very difficult, like, when you've got a Call of the Forge God, it's very quick, it's okay. There's our Call of the Forge God straight through everyone, and that's the CC chain done. Yeah. But the thing is, because of how slow moving sometimes this Twisted Advance is, it makes it a lot more difficult to try and deal with, because if you are trying to flank as Kingen or Meteor, for example, and your rest of the team is trying to engage alongside with you, you can zone out the entirety of BLG and just deal with Meteor on the flank while they're all getting tangled up in those roots.
Well, the really beautiful thing about all of that chaos for the side of JDG here is, first off, they've got themselves a 1,500 gold lead. They're going to look for FoFo as well. Flash comes out from the Syndra there. But importantly, 2 of those kills went onto Yagao. He's already on the LeBlanc. As you mentioned, he's got the Dark Seal, so he can head towards potentially a Magize if he wants to. He's got a bounty. Everything's looking pretty good for the JDG mid laner right now.
And also for JDG in general, right? Because they've got that Rift Tower. They can pop this down in the mid lane, get some pressure there if they want to before going for this Dragon. But it looks like once bitten, twice shy, and BLG are not going to quite go and contest it.
I mean, it's difficult for Meteor to do much of anything here with Yagao nearby, but Yagao actually very low on mana.
That's what I was going to say. They do need to do this relatively quickly because Yagao hasn't got a lot in the tank here, although with double TPs, we're going to fight.
BLG want to go for this one, and LoKen knows it. Starts the fight with the ulti, and Kingen is just going to be onto Yagao in the back line. Can he finish off this kill? 1v1, Yagao gets away, and in the meantime, BLG trying to skirmish this one out, but Kanavi's jumped into everybody, and the BLG health bars are falling low, but LoKen now has been found by Kingen, forced to flash out himself as Kingen is running rampant in this one, finally goes down. Yagao is arriving once again. Zoom is still here. It's 2 for 1 so far. But ultimately, the Dragon, I'm not even sure which Dragon it was.
It was the Infernal Dragon, so it was JDG who
picked
it up. Yeah, it was a very chaotic fight though, because as you saw Kingen coming in the back line, wasn't able to make it past Yagao, had to pop the ult to try and kill him. LeBlanc still escapes, and that's the big team fighting ults here. So the fact that Kingen actually couldn't get in on top of JDG was a massive issue here. Like, this could have been a very different story if Kingen had been able to get on top of them, but Yagao does a good job of locking him up, stopping him from getting involved, which means that this fight here that's all kicking off doesn't have this 10-inch rip through those health.
And with how close that fight was as well, there was a blast code. I feel like Kingen could have just committed to getting onto the entire team, helped set up the rest of his team. I genuinely think that BLG probably could have just won that fight.
It's very close to call because you have to be careful, of course, as you go over that wall. You are already chained by Yagao, so by the time you pop over the wall, you're chained there. It's not like he has access to a stopwatch or anything along these lines. There's a lot of burst potential that can still come out if Kanavi turns back, LoKen turns back. You can kill Kingen before his ult actually even pops, and then that's an even bigger issue for you. So it's a hard one to call, but yeah. Look, BLG haven't been able to find the best of fights. Still go up for at least a kill in that fight, which is great for them. But the problem is the objective went over to JDG, and JDG now, with that Rift Tower we talked about, have added more plates over towards LoKen.
They have got a smaller gold lead than they did a moment ago when we talked about it before, though. So BLG at least keeping themselves in this game for now. And FoFo's finished off the Luden's Echo as well, which is a huge power spike on the Syndra. If LoKen gets hit by a QE, he's in kill range.
And vice versa, right? Yagao has his own Luden's Echo, which is just as damn powerful on the LeBlanc as well. This is why this is such a menacing matchup, is that it really does come down to who can get these early snowballs going. And right now, Yagao, with those 2 kills and extra Dark Seal stacks, will have a slight edge here, let alone that level advantage as well.
I have to say, I feel like multiple times this split, I've been watching BLG, and I'm like, when I look down this roster, there is so much potential, right? We always use this word potential, and it's like Kingen. This guy can make insane things happen, and I'm about to compliment him as he gets collapsed on. He's going to be okay, thank God. Kingen, though, can make insane things happen. We've seen awesome plays out of him. Meteor as well came in and changed the face of this team once again. FoFo has had some insane pop-offs. The problem with BLG, though, is they never quite seem to be firing on all cylinders at the same time.
And what makes it worse is that we always see this little spurt of amazingness out of it. There's always that one game that just looks absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And unfortunately, that just isn't consistent enough. And it breaks your heart because, as you said, you've got Rookie of the Year from 2019 on this squad in Meteor. You've got Kingen, who looks absolutely fantastic, obviously coming over from KT Roaster to try and play with this team. Like, these are mega names in the scene that you thought you'd hope to see a lot more from, but sitting down in 11th place right now.
Well, these mega names in the scene are looking for a Rift Herald, but Zoom's coming from the backside. He's going to throw the Nature's Grasp across the whole squad, and FoFo has been found by a bear. He's going to get chopped on down as well, but here's the slicing Maelstrom that we wanted before. Kingen gets into the fight, finishes off LoKen early, but XinMo is low, forced to flash away. Meteor goes down here, and once again it's a close fight, but once again JDG come out on top.
Yeah, they will just about come out on top. Can also turn over towards this Rift Herald. Yagao is still hovering in the bush, waiting to see if he can pick off anyone who wanders too close. But there you go, the 2 beefcakes of Zoom and Kanavi not low enough for BLG to try and contest.
And it was kind of hilarious at the start of that fight that we see Zoom and Kanavi, as you described them, beefcakes. Both of them just jump on FoFo. It's like, yeah, you got a lot of damage, but we got a lot of health, buddy. And they just beat the crap out of it.
And it's vice versa, right? Because you see BLG jumping in onto their own backline. They get onto LoKen, and the only reason that fight wasn't as disastrous as it could have been was LoKen actually had a stopwatch for that play. He just sold it, but it meant that he stayed alive that little bit longer. And we're going to see it here where, again, this setup from JDG. Like, this is the beauty of the Maokai, of how wide that ultimate is. You're pretty much guaranteed to lock up someone at these objective fights. And then we see here, LoKen manages to draw attention long enough. You can even see XinMo committing with that Fate's Call onto LoKen to try and lock him up. And it means that then the rest of JDG, despite those low health bars, are still present, still able to fight and push BLG back.
One thing that is important that we do have to mention is later on into the game, hang on, Kanavi takes a good chunk of damage here. He's going to be fine. They're not going to commit, not just yet anyway, but the Dragon is available here. This Kalista from Wings, over the next sort of 10 to 15 minutes, will be at its very strongest in the game, especially at that 2 and 3 item mark. Ashe is going to do way better later on into the game, though, and the the picks that we have from JDG, they're going to be fine in the later stages of the game. It has to be said, the carry in the bottom lane from Wings, not so good in the late game.
I think the thing here is that with the way that these two teams are going to interact, because of how chaotic and hectic, as you can already see from the fights are, it is going to come down far more to execution. How big of a nose can Kingen get? Can Wings actually be allowed to auto-attack against Zoom and Kanavi? Because we just saw in that last fight, Zoom and Kanavi are more than happy to just jump straight onto this Kalista. So, and even then, Meteor provides so much damage in these fights as well as the Sett with that haymaker powered up. So, try and see his Kingen already looking for a flank here, but Yagao also trying to keep him at bay.
We're going to have that 1v1 once again that we saw earlier on in the Inferno Dragon fight. Dragon taken down to half health. There is Meteor, face breaker on the whole squad. That is a great CC chain, but absolutely no damage to follow it. Now XinMo is the target. Face call to keep him safe. Zoom gets out with his own life once again. Now we're 5v5, strong still, but JDG are the ones in position on the Dragon as it resets back into the pit. It looks like they're not done just yet. Yagao stops Kingen from recalling. And eventually this Dragon goes down. Now Zoom into the play, and everybody going to follow up as well. FoFo the first one to fall. Yagao finally gets the 1v1. And now he can collapse onto the rest of the squad as well. LoKen still going strong as well, as Wings flashed on under the tower. LoKen's going to chase this one down. Ethereal Chains won't quite be enough. But you know what? They still take the fight.
And they'll get this tower, they get the Dragon. JDG once again coming up clutch in these team fights. And with that massive engage from Zoom, they're able to take down 4 members of BLG.
Well, would you look at that? 10-4 now as JDG just keep everyone at arm's length for so damn long as they grab the Dragon. And then once they finally got everything, once everything's pretty much on cooldown for BLG, they're like, all right, now it's time to fight.
Yeah, and look, it was a great setup from them. Yagao is doing an amazing job here keeping Kingen, or at least finding Kingen and keeping him out of these fights. And I was wondering here, because you can see with Kingen on the side here, that JDG were a little bit hesitant. They weren't sure if Kingen was going to come in over the wall, but look at that ultimate again from the Maokai. Wraps up Wings, no follow-up damage. FoFo has to try and avoid it as well, so he's stuck off to his side. So even though, as you called it, get this massive engage coming through from Meteor and the Sett, there's just no follow-up there. And once that 1-2 punch is out of the way, JDG turn, flash forward from Zoom, straight onto FoFo, and that's all she wrote then to deal.
And I feel like Yagao was like the silent MVP of that fight as well, stopping Kingen doing anything. You'd see Kingen wanted to recall and teleport back into the play, completely denied by Yagao. And then obviously Yagao trying to set up LoKen for those kills later on in the skirmish as well. And so now we find ourselves with JDG, a significant 5,000 gold lead. They got 2 Drakes. They had both Rift Heralds this game as well. And BLG kind of falling off.
And think about how tanky JDG are as well, right? You got Maokai, you got this Volibear, you got Leona, and you're going to add a couple more Mountain Souls, or Mountain Dragons in towards that potential soul later on for JDG. They're looking pretty damn big right now, and it's hard, as we said, for BLG to try and fight against this composition, because Wings, such short range, has to deal with all that CC that Maokai's churning out. Same when Kanavi's gooding for this Kalista, or even for FoFo as well. The 2 carries are very much struggling in these fights.
And you know, something we mentioned before was that this series could well be down to jungle diff, right? It was Kanavi and Meteor that had to be setting the teams up. Well, Kanavi has a 2-level lead over Meteor. He's got a 40 CS advantage. Obviously, the kills and assists are going to be going his way with the way the fights have been, but even outside of that, it feels like Kanavi's been in charge when it comes to these neutral objectives.
It's that JDG as a whole have been entering these fights so incredibly well. Both times we've seen Rift Herald place. Zoom on a flank, able to lock up the 2 back lines of BLG. We then go over towards these Dragon fights, and as well, Kanavi's forcing back BLG with JDG, and Yagao, as you pointed out, that silent MVP, keeping Kingen at bay. So overall, it's just been JDG doing a good job of finding these fights and avoiding what BLG's composition wants to do.
LvMao looks like he wants to start a fight here. Is Yagao going to get some damage on XinMo? They're going to back away though. That's certainly not the target that they want to start everything off onto here. Both top laners have TPs. Let's bear that in mind, because at any given moment, we could just have an insane pop-off where they both teleport in and suddenly it's a 5v5.
It is always going to be a 5v5. Both these top laners, it's not like they're exactly going to take a tower by themselves. I suppose for Kingen,
how is either of them going to kill each other, really?
Exactly. So it is just a case of buying time, getting the waves in order, and then trying to use that wave advantage to make plays over towards this Baron. But we're only 23 minutes into the game, so it's not like we're going to see Baron done particularly quickly, especially when you look at JDG's side. Yes, you've got that Ashe with the Blade of the Rune King, which is great, but the rest of the comp isn't exactly up to scratch when it comes to rushing that objective. BLG have a slightly better comp at doing it, but they're not the ones with the tempo advantage. They're not the ones in control of this game.
There's not much of a chance of sneaking it either against Ashe because of the Hawk shot as well. Like, you never get to sneak Baron against a composition like this. But you mentioned the Ashe, you mentioned the Kalista. Let's quickly talk about items once again, because they've both got the Blade of the Rune King, they've both got the Hurricane, but you can see LoKen well on the way towards that death stance as well. And in the mid lane, similar story where Yagao has a bit of a gold lead and an item lead over that of FoFo.
Especially when FoFo is also going towards that Banshee's Veil, you can see the difference there, and that means that Yagao, very big threat on this side.
He's going to go straight. See you later, FoFo. Oh my days. Well, the fight's already over. There's not much to commentate here. Is BLG, they're just going to flee with their tails between their legs here. And I mean, you said Yagao was going to be the star of the fight. There wasn't even a fight.
I mean, look, it's not really fair you get sucker punched from over the wall, but I mean, it works. You can't argue with the results. JDG will turn towards this dragon, pick up the third one, as at least for now, BLG are just going to try and get some sort of vision control in around Baron to stop JDG from going towards that arc.
My goodness. I'm kind of reeling from the damage he just did. I was like, I saw him on 2 items, but I saw the second item was Banshees. It's like a, somewhat defensive item. I was like, he's going to be able to do LeBlanc things, blah, blah, blah. But it's Yagao and LeBlanc. What did I expect? Of course he's going to pop off. Of course he's going to find a pick.
And this is the thing about Yagao, is that, look, he will have only certain picks that he is a very big fan of. The Twisted Fates, the Zoes, the Azirs, and this LeBlanc. But when he gets his hand on his favorite champions, by God, does he look absolutely stellar. And that's what we're seeing here, is just a clinic on how to play LeBlanc. Because, as you can see here, just pops in straight over the wall. FoFo suspects nothing. By the time he does, it's far too late.
I mean, he didn't have a moment to blink there.
There's your Mage Eyes as well.
Yeah, there's that Mage Eyes. 10 stacks already from the Dark Seal. And we'll see. We'll keep our eyes on that. We'll count how high it's going to be able to go. FoFo, though, he's on the Syndra. You never get to steal the blue buff away from this Syndra. But I think that might be the last objective that FoFo is able to steal away from JDG this game. Dagda, it's not looking good for them. And when we talk about the standings, this series really matters. Kanavi has been found. Wing's trying to follow up as well, but Kanavi survived, and now they're going to try and turn it around. They just grasp across the team. XinMo the target as he gets a knock-up, and in comes Kingen with a slicing maelstrom. Maybe this is the moment for BLG. Stopwatch used, though, and maybe it's not the moment for BLG, because they just don't have any damage. They looked so good so many times over the last 30 seconds, but they just can't finish anyone off.
And that's the thing, is that as soon as Zoom gets in again, everyone on BLG is getting locked up. They can't deal with the CC chain that JDG provide, and nobody can get on towards LoKen. Despite how low JDG's AD carry goes, that's the damage source. That's who they need to kill. But JDG survive, and they will go towards Baron.
It looked so beautiful, but it just wasn't meant to be. And now Meteor, he's got the world on his shoulders. There's a Baron steal might be on the cards here, but Yagao has the blue buff, so he's going to be able to threaten FoFo once again. He knows exactly where FoFo is, and he wants to make the play. Chains to go wide, though. It means he has to back away once more, but those cooldowns will come up again very shortly. Yagao pops his Banshees here. Zoom just going to try and keep them away here. Baron goes their way. Meteor will be the next one to fall. And now it's a matter of chasing once again. The slow's coming out. Wings has to get over the wall here, and LoKen won't flash over to keep going here. FoFo, he's going to be gone. There's not a lot more to say about this fight, Dagda, as XinMo just tried to escape. LoKen jumps over once again as his Mimic came off cooldown. I mean, they tried. That's all I got.
They did. They tried real hard, but they didn't try hard enough. And JDG, they have to take the Baron. They take that fight as well. And now for BLG, it's like, what the hell do you do? A 22 stack, 605 LeBlanc is gunning for you. And already he was blowing up people right, left, and center. But watch here. So the reason that BLG go for this aggressive play is because they see him both side lanes. You've got the Maokai, you've got the LeBlanc. But as Zoom comes in, again, this massive CC chain. FoFo's pushed back, Wings is pushed back. So even though Kingen gets this massive ulti, nobody's able to follow up. He can't even get a scatter the weak through the team to try and pick off this Ashe on the back line. And from that point forward, JDG right the ship, they turn this around, and they're straight back into fighting BLG.
Yeah, and while they were obviously in the side lanes, both Yagao and Zoom had TP. So they weren't in the side lanes for very long. And as you rightly say, there just wasn't any damage. There was no follow-up. They were CC'd anyway, so even if they had the damage, they couldn't follow up. You could see Wings auto-attacking for most of the fight and killing no one because, I don't know, these tanks are like, Kalista ain't that great against tanks.
Well, usually she is, because you can stack a bunch of Rens into them, you can do a bunch of damage with the Blade of the Ruin King. The problem right now, though, is that they're so far ahead, and they have so much CC, so much opportunity to lock her up, and this is just not the style of composition that Kalista wants to play into.
Hang on, Crystalline Arrow onto XinMo, but Face Call keeps him safe. Zoom's behind everyone, by the way, as he wants to start this fight off in style. XinMo is running out of defensives here. Still has the flash available, but he's not going to have any chance to use it. Pulls everyone back into the fight, does Meteor, as another double kill comes through for LoKen. FoFo is going to be the next target, and you can try as much as you like, but there's no way out of that one. And now Yagao in a 2v1 in the meantime. He's going to get stunned up. The Ren used, but it's not going to be enough. Flash forward, and Yagao gets yet another kill for himself. LoKen gets a double to top it all off. Another ace. It might be scattered, but an ace is an ace. And it's 420. JDG are blazing it.
And they're meant to blaze through this base as well. Structures will be raised, as you can already see. Maokai and Leona have gone in.
Like 5 minutes ago, we talked about the Medjais. It's 25 stacks already. That is disgusting, Doug.
Yeah, it's been non-stop aggression here from JDG. Looking so clean in this game. And honestly, BLG, this was what we were worried about. This is why we're looking at them saying this is not a team that looks like they can make that playoff contention, because this has just been JDG running away with this from the game.
Zoom is going to take a bit of a love tap from Meteor here, but, I mean, look at his items. Yeah. He's probably going to be fine. He's got a Syndra hook, he's got armor, he's got MR, he's got a Glacial Shroud on top of everything else. He's Gucci. And you know what? If he wasn't tanky enough yet, Dagda, there's a Mountain Soul for him to go and sweep up here.
It looks like that's going to be the port of call here to go and grab as well. And I was wondering what we were going to see, actually, just looking at Zoom, if he was going to go in towards the Righteous Glory with that Glacier Shroud, but has gone for the Frozen Heart. So just to make things even worse for Wings, but it's just, this is just obnoxious.
LvMao just ulted the dragon.
Yeah.
Like, I know it doesn't matter, but that's like the level that JDG are at right now. That's how far ahead they are, and they know it.
Yeah. They definitely do, and I think actually speaking of speed-ups, I think Luma's going for that Shirelli's next, so they're going to be going damn speedy in towards these fights, so there might be redemption. And look, I'm not even... what do you want me to say to this fight? It's just JDG are ahead, they pull the trigger, we talk about how strong their engage is, especially when Zoom is consistently on these flanks, and you may have a Banshee's Veil, you may have a Cleanse, but you cannot get away from JDG the third time.
Yeah. I think Atlas always says it best. They're slapping them with their wallets at this point. They're so far ahead monetarily that they can just annihilate every single fight. Kingen, you know, I wanted to see more out of this Kennen. I saw the Kennen and I was like, hey, we're going to have some team fights. This is going to be beautiful, blah, blah, blah. But nah, it's not happening. The bottom two inhibs have already gone, which means now JDG can just waltz into the top side and just steal this tower away.
I'm looking at Luma. Look, I know it's a redemption he picked up. That's the better item. But I just want to see someone build like a Righteous Glory or Shirelli's and just watch JDG just run over BLG with all the CC, all the damage, and especially when you've got so much engage. I mean, it just feels like once you get on top of these guys, you just ruin them.
I think that's why he's not doing it right. They're not exactly struggling for ways into the fight at this point. Speaking of which, Kanavi's found a way into the fight. Meteor with a good face breaker, but in the meantime, Yagao just annihilates 1v1. There's another kill for LoKen. I mean, this one's over. There's a flash for a stun. They want more kills. Why not? Pad the KDA, right? Because Zoom sure as hell ain't going to go down. Neither's Kanavi, as they're just going to play bruisers, keeping everyone on the fountain. They're the bouncers, and the Rift is the club right now. And BLG, you're not allowed in. The Nexus is going to fall. And a dominant stomp here from JDG. But it should be expected from the second team of the league.